Welcome to Reddit Revenge Stories. Did you know over 90% of our viewers don't subscribe? If you enjoy this video, please subscribe and hit that like button. We're targeting 500 likes on this one. Let's dive into today's tale. I'm not the type of guy who airs dirty laundry. I believe in privacy and keeping things behind closed doors. But when your life falls apart in front of you, when the person you trusted most drives a knife through your back with a smile, you learn that silence only protects the wrong people. So I'm speaking now, not for sympathy, not for attention, but because I need to get this off my chest. I need to tell my story the way it happened. Maybe it'll help someone else, or maybe it'll just help me sleep at night. Either way, this is what happened. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 39 years old, a high school history teacher in a small Pennsylvania town, and until 8 months ago, I was married to my college sweetheart, Megan. We met during freshman orientation, dated all 4 years, got engaged the summer after graduation, and tied the knot the following spring. People called us the golden couple. We were that kind of annoyingly in-sync duo. Same taste in music, same sense of humor, same desire for a quiet life. We moved into a modest house on a tree-lined street. Megan became a nurse, I taught history, and we built what I thought was a rock-solid life together. For a while, everything was fine. We weren't flashy, but we were happy. Megan worked night shifts at the hospital a few times a week, and I spent evenings grading papers and watching reruns of old sitcoms. We went on weekend hikes, tried new recipes, and hosted dinner for our friends once a month. I never thought to question anything. Why would I? We didn't fight much. We had goals. We were saving for a trip to Ireland next summer. We were planning to start trying for a baby. Looking back, I see the signs now. Little shifts in behavior that didn't register at the time. Megan started going out more, even on nights she wasn't working. Girls' night, she'd say, slipping on earrings I hadn't seen before. She began locking her phone, something she'd never bothered with before. She laughed at messages I didn't see, smiled at names she never mentioned. But I told myself not to be paranoid. She deserved space. Trust is what makes a marriage strong, right? Wrong. Trust is what made me blind. The truth unraveled slowly, like thread from an old sweater. It started on a Thursday in November. I'd come home early from a faculty meeting that was cut short due to a power outage. Megan wasn't supposed to be home until after midnight, but when I walked through the door, I heard voices upstairs. Not the TV, not the radio. Voices, low, intimate, unmistakably familiar. My heart didn't even pound. It just stopped. I climbed the stairs quietly, too quietly, like I was trying to protect the illusion a few seconds longer. When I reached the hallway, our bedroom door was cracked. And there, through that narrow opening, I saw Megan sitting on the bed. Not alone. Next to her was someone I never thought I'd have to question. Ethan, my best friend. The guy I met in high school. The guy who stood beside me as my best man. The guy who held my newborn nephew before I did. And now he was holding my wife's hand like it was his. They weren't doing anything explicit. No clothes were off. But that didn't matter. The intimacy was worse than anything physical. The way they leaned toward each other, the way her fingers played with his wristwatch, my birthday gift to him 2 years ago, the way their eyes locked like nothing else existed. That was the kind of betrayal that words can't cover. I didn't barge in. I didn't yell. I walked back down the stairs and sat on the couch. I waited. 30 minutes later, I heard the front door open and close. Megan walked in from the front, pretending she'd just gotten home. She kissed my cheek like everything was fine. And I played along. I didn't say anything that night. Or the next. I spent the following weeks gathering what I needed. I didn't confront her. I watched. I listened. I learned her patterns. She was careful, but not careful enough. She left her email logged in on the laptop once. That was all I needed. Inside were receipts, hotel confirmations, messages that made me nauseous. She'd been meeting him for months. They had codes, like teenagers sneaking out of their parents' house. Ethan had always been around. He was close to both of us, but apparently closer to her. I went through old photos, old texts, and saw it all with new eyes. The way he looked at her when he thought I wasn't watching. The private jokes I wasn't part of. The way she leaned into him at parties, it wasn't sudden. It was a slow erosion of loyalty. I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch walls, but instead, I planned. Revenge isn't about rage. It's about precision. And I was going to make sure they felt every ounce of the pain they caused. Not with fists, but with consequences. I started small. I accidentally forwarded some of Ethan's flirty emails to a mutual friend, one of those people who can't help but gossip. I knew it would ripple. I invited Ethan to help, chaperone the school fundraiser I was organizing, knowing full well the principal would be there, and that Ethan's recent sick days didn't match up with the dates he'd spent in a hotel across town. I planted seeds. I let rumors grow. I never accused anyone directly. I just let the truth hover nearby, waiting to be discovered. And then, one night in December, I dropped the real bomb. It was our annual Christmas dinner. We hosted every year. Megan loved it. Decorating the table, lighting candles, playing the same cheesy playlist. Everyone was there, friends, coworkers, neighbors, even Ethan. Especially Ethan. He brought a bottle of wine and a grin like he hadn't stolen my life out from under me. Midway through the meal, I stood to make a toast. I held my glass high and thanked everyone for their love and friendship. And then I turned to Megan and said, "To my beautiful wife, may the next man you betray learn from my mistakes." I turned to Ethan and added, "And to my best friend. Hope the wine's worth the guilt." You could hear a fork hit the floor. I didn't wait for reactions. I walked out, keys in hand, bag already packed. I moved into a rented condo the next day, filed for divorce the day after that. But my plan wasn't finished. Not even close. I wasn't going to let them ride off into the sunset while I licked my wounds. They wanted a secret life. I'd let the light in. They wanted to build something on lies. I'd make sure it crumbled. And I was just getting started. But that's just my side of the story. Megan will tell hers, and I'll admit, I'm curious what version she's going to spin. Because when the truth comes out, it never looks the same to everyone. But it always stings. They say there's two sides to every story. And while I know how I'll be painted in his version, villain, betrayer, the one who threw everything away, I still need to tell mine. Not to excuse anything, not to pretend I didn't do wrong, but because truth doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers under layers of grief and silence. And I think I owe it to myself, to whoever still cares, to peel back those layers. My name is Megan Carter. Well, legally it's still Carter, though I've stopped using the name. Doesn't feel like mine anymore. Not after everything. I was married to Daniel for 11 years. We met when we were just kids, practically, and we got caught up in a fairy tale that never really belonged to us. We played the parts we were supposed to. I wore the dress, smiled in the pictures, and told myself it was love. Maybe it was back then, but somewhere along the way it turned into routine, into silence. I'm not going to pretend we had a miserable marriage. We didn't. Daniel is kind, loyal, and dependable. But those are not the same as being present. After the first few years, it felt like he stopped seeing me. Not in a cruel way, just in that slow, suffocating way that makes you wonder if you're more roommate than wife. I worked night shifts and he worked late with school papers and meetings. We passed each other in the kitchen, kissed hello, kissed goodbye. I couldn't remember the last time he asked me how I really was. It's strange how loneliness can live right beside someone who loves you. You start to question yourself. Maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe this is just how long marriages are. Maybe passion is for the young and foolish. But those thoughts don't go away. They fester. And eventually, they break through the surface. Ethan wasn't part of any plan. He wasn't someone I pined for or plotted with. He was just there, always around. Kind, easy to talk to, and unlike Daniel, he noticed me. I didn't fall into his arms the way Daniel makes it sound. There was guilt, shame, hesitation. I fought it. I reminded myself of vows, of right and wrong, of the wreckage that could come. But there was also something undeniable about feeling seen again. Like I mattered. Like I was someone's priority. I know how that sounds. selfish. And it was. I won't sugarcoat it. I betrayed a man who never raised his voice to me, who bought flowers on random Tuesdays and remembered how I liked my coffee. But love, or at least loyalty, isn't always enough to stop someone from slipping when they're drowning. I slipped, and I broke something sacred in the process. The day Daniel found out, though I didn't know he had, I came home and kissed him on the cheek like always. That night, I felt something off. He didn't ask about my day. He didn't complain about school politics or the principal who annoyed him. He just smiled, nodded, and went to bed early. And for the next few weeks, it was more of the same. Polite, distant, robotic. I should have known. I should have realized he was already planning something. Then came the Christmas dinner, our annual tradition. I decorated the house, lit candles, and made his favorite cranberry pork roast. I wanted that night to feel normal, to ground me again, to remind me of what I was risking. But I didn't realize how far things had already spiraled. When he raised his glass, I expected another one of his heartfelt, slightly awkward toasts. But then he turned to me and the words came like knives. To my beautiful wife, may the next man you betray learn from my mistakes. Then to Ethan, and to my best friend. Hope the wine's worth the guilt. I didn't even breathe. No one did. The silence in that room was deafening. I felt the blood drain from my face. Ethan stood frozen, his glass still in his hand. I looked around the room and saw judgment in every stare, disgust, disappointment. Daniel just walked out like a curtain had dropped on a stage. The next morning, he was gone. Not just from the house, but from the life we built. His closet was half empty, his toothbrush missing, and a thick envelope on the kitchen counter with divorce papers inside. I knew I deserved it. I didn't try to fight it, but I underestimated him. I thought the explosion at dinner was his grand finale. I didn't know it was just his opening act. Within a week, whispers turned into rumors. Friends stopped calling. Invitations disappeared. At work, my supervisor pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay at home. Turns out someone had forwarded emails, private messages between Ethan and me to people I worked with. People we both knew. People who didn't need to see what they saw. Ethan's world collapsed even faster. His job at the real estate firm? Gone. Turns out someone made an anonymous tip to HR linking his client meetings to the same dates as the hotels we'd used. The firm didn't like the look of it. Lack of integrity, they called it. He was let go quietly but effectively. I tried to lay low. I tried to rebuild. But there's something about small towns. They don't let things go. Every time I walked into a grocery store, I felt eyes on me, whispers, half smiles that vanished when I looked up. Even people I thought were friends turned cold, and Daniel? He said nothing, did nothing. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't respond to the letter I sent, the one where I apologized, really apologized, for what I did. He stayed quiet, but his silence had weight. It wasn't the kind of silence that disappears. It was the kind that echoes. I moved into a small apartment across town, nothing fancy, just enough to get by. I cut ties with Ethan eventually. Not out of anger, but because we both knew this thing we started was never going to survive what came after. It wasn't love. It was escape. And when you escape the wrong way, you end up in worse places than where you started. For a while, I thought maybe that was the end. Maybe that was my punishment. Loneliness, shame, and a new reputation I didn't ask for but definitely earned. But Daniel wasn't done. His next move would be the one that changed everything, not just for me, but for the one person I thought I had left. He went after Ethan's family. It wasn't direct. Daniel would never be messy like that, but little things started happening. Ethan's brother Greg lost a big job contract, one he'd been almost guaranteed to win. Somehow a negative character reference made its way to the hiring board. Ethan's sister, Laura, had her social media hacked. Private family photos were posted online, including a few of her children, which sparked a firestorm of concern and temporary suspension from her teaching job. None of it pointed directly to Daniel. There were no fingerprints, but I knew. The timing, the precision, it had his quiet anger all over it. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't throwing punches. He was dismantling every piece of Ethan's life, one quiet blow at a time. And even if I'd walked away from Ethan, I still felt responsible. I had opened the door to all of it. I wish I could say I hated Daniel for it, that I felt wronged or angry or anything but the crushing weight of guilt. But the truth is, I understood. He'd been humiliated, betrayed by two people he trusted most, and instead of breaking down, he turned cold, calculated, careful. He was rebuilding himself, not just by walking away from the wreckage, but by making sure those who lit the match felt the heat. I don't know if revenge ever really heals people. Maybe it just gives them something to do while the pain runs its course. But Daniel's story isn't over. Not yet. And neither is mine. Because there's one more piece to all this. One more secret neither of us has shared. And when it comes out, it'll change everything again. People say revenge doesn't fix the pain, it just keeps the fire burning longer. Maybe that's true. But sometimes, fire is the only thing that keeps you warm when everything else is cold. After Megan's public unraveling and Ethan's fall from grace, I thought I'd feel closure. But I didn't. Not completely. There was still something clawing at me, like a voice in the dark whispering, "It's not over yet." I kept telling myself I wasn't doing this out of hatred. I just wanted balance, justice. But I think part of me also wanted them to know that they messed with the wrong man. When I exposed Ethan's affair to his family, I knew exactly how to make it look like coincidence. A friend in the HR department at his firm, an anonymous email to the school where his sister worked, even the tip about his brother's past financial issue, just a little reminder to the right person. Nothing illegal, just enough to let the truth do its damage. But all that paled compared to what I held in my back pocket. A few months before everything went south, Megan had confided something in me, an offhand comment during one of our rare late-night talks. She'd mentioned a financial slip-up Ethan had made a couple years back. Something about misrepresenting assets on a client's real estate deal. She'd brushed it off as old news, said he'd cleaned it up. But I remembered. I always remembered things like that, so I dug deeper, quietly. I found the original records, tracked down the client, and with some polite coaxing and well-placed questions, I pieced together the truth. Ethan hadn't just fudged paperwork. He'd manipulated a vulnerable older couple into selling their home under market value, profiting from their trust. It was buried in closed files, but not anymore. I packaged the information carefully, documents, email excerpts, a copy of the falsified agreement, and sent it to the state licensing board. Ethan lost his real estate license 2 weeks later. It wasn't just a career-ending blow. It was the one thing he couldn't come back from. He wasn't just embarrassed now, he was branded. Megan tried to call me afterward. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't trust myself to hear her voice and stay on this path. She sounded broken in the one voicemail she left. But I wasn't her caretaker anymore. I was just the man she buried with her choices. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized her handwriting immediately. Inside, she wrote only 2 sentences. "You win, but I still loved you once." I stared at those words for a long time. Not because I believed them, but because a part of me still wanted to. I didn't write back. The truth is, I don't know what winning even means anymore. I have my name, my job, and my dignity. But the house is empty, holidays are quiet, and trust, well, that doesn't grow back easily. I'm rebuilding, slowly. A different version of life. One that doesn't depend on someone else to make me feel whole. I don't check up on Megan. I don't ask mutual friends how she's doing. I let the past stay where it belongs. But if she ever tells this story, I hope she tells it right. Not just the mistakes, but the moments before them. The silences, the missed chances, the quiet ways we stopped choosing each other. Because that's what really ends a marriage, not just betrayal, but all the times you could have turned toward each other and didn't. I don't hate her anymore, but I won't forgive her either. Some things you just outlive.